How awesome does it feel when you're able to find a deal? It's that extra shot of dopamine where it feels like you got perceived value on the front end, and it feels so much better because you know that in the long run, sure, you'll take profits when you sell a home, but buying at the right time is always more beneficial. And in today's video, we're going to talk about why the months of August to October are actually some of the best in Greater Atlanta to buy a property. And this is usually when I try to scope things off market for my clients. If I'm looking for my own personal properties, I try to work within these timeframes. And it's just a better opportunity based on a few different factors. So let's dive in. Now, one of the biggest things is obviously the fact that Greater Atlanta has a ton of metropolitan areas and suburbs that operate around the school year. The school year here is a little bit different where yes, schools get out earlier in the year, but they also start back earlier. So the first week of August is when kids go back to school. And that is usually the sign that the summer market has started to roll over. Ideally, anyone that was going to move ahead of time, whether they're transitioning their kids for school or just entering a new district, would have done so prior to the end of July, just to be able to get settled and get acclimated to the new area and prep for the school year. So it's not a rough transition. Now, something to be mindful of is there's a lot of properties that were either late to market or have just stagnated and sat on the market and are still currently available as the new school year starts. This could be from a bunch of different factors, but something we've seen this year is the sellers still kind of feel like it's 2022, 2023, and the buyers are feeling the impact of the increased interest rates and the economic uncertainty. So you have two competing forces where the sellers are still trying to achieve elevated pricing, but the buyers are really taking a step back and looking at it and saying, if I want to offer on a home, I really want to check all the boxes. I need it to make sense. And financially, it has to be a smarter decision than just trying to outbid every person, because that's not the market that we're in anymore, especially as rates stay high and borrowing power and purchasing power is slightly diminished because it takes more down payment to get a better home. Now, knowing this, buyers have a unique opportunity where if a home is still listed, that has been listed, whether it was May, June, or July, and now the school year starts, if it's in an area or a suburb that is predominantly driven by the school year, this gives a unique opportunity to actually have leverage. Now, this is coupled with the fact that homes are just taking longer to sell in general as the market has slowed a little bit this year, and it gives buyers ammunition to go to a seller and present an offer that maybe in May or June might not have been as agreeable, but now that we get to August and their buyer pool has shrank considerably, they may be more willing to negotiate or jump at something that seemed outlandish before. And this is something we see year after year, even in the seller's market. In a seller's mind, their best time to sell is always going to be when it's green out, it's sunny, people are moving through school, vacation. So that's kind of the window. Sellers are programmed to know, okay, I have from, let's say, March or April until summer ends to get my home sold for the most amount of money. And generally that is true. But in Greater Atlanta, we have a lot more peaks and valleys than some other metros do, because yes, we operate around the school year, but we have industries here that operate all year round, whether that's the tech sector, the filming sector. There's a ton of corporate relocations that we see prior to the end of the year. So we have a really strong Q4 and a really strong Q2 going into Q3. But that kind of Q3, Q4 area, that August, September, October timeframe, this to me is the lull. And not in the sense that transactions don't happen. It's the mental lull that sellers go through where they think, oh my God, my home is still listed for sale. There's not going to be any buyers. Showings have really started tapering off or stopped altogether, and we're just not getting the same traction. So they start panicking. Now, from a buyer, what we're going to see is you have to be a little bit tactful about this, because you want to construct offers in a way that is still advantageous to you, but not necessarily completely insulting and off-putting to the sellers. So this is something where open dialogue between the agents becomes very helpful. If it's a for sale by owner, just kind of trying to tease out the owner's motivation of why they're looking to sell and pick up on those pain points that you could try to manipulate into an offer itself. Now, August is still going to be a little tricky for a buyer, because what you have is, yes, the school system has started here, but in other parts of of the US, especially like our feeder markets in the Northeast, their school year doesn't really start until September. So a lot of those families are still in transition mode. They may have been late to the game up there. They move in August, still get their child into a school year a little bit later, or they're potentially prepping for next school year and just trying to get settled ahead of time. So August is kind of that first step down of buyer activity that we see, where you have to start thinking from this perspective of, if there's something that's on the market, can I make it work? Or can I bake in renovations? Or maybe the negotiation is a little bit lower than it would have been a month ago. And that's kind of the first step towards getting that buyer power back. Now, as we go a little bit further, especially September and October, kind of to the middle of October, this to me is the prime window. If you have the ability to move in this time frame and you're looking to purchase a property, most of the homes that are on the market have completely missed the boat for all school years. They're past the Georgia school system, they're past the school system starting for other relocating families, and we're not quite to that Q4 sector where corporate relocations are trying to get in before the holidays and end of the year. So properties that are still on the market in that end of August, September, and middle of October timeframe, those are sellers that generally have to sell, and they know that they're kind of in no man's land. This is where you can be a lot more forceful with some offers. Maybe even just if it's not necessarily price point, you could have a little bit more of an extended inspection period. Let's say you bake in more contingencies. You do the most outlandish thing possible and put a home sale contingency, which was absolutely unheard of getting accepted a few years ago. We've really started seeing those come back quite a bit. It's just all about the dynamic shifting. And from a buyer, you have to look at, it's like, this is the time to strike. It's not necessarily because the market is slow. There's homes transacting all the time. It's just perception. And if you wait too long in Q4, we actually start seeing a lot more sales in Q4 with those relocations ahead of the new year. People start moving for tax reasons. Winter's coming. They're trying to get out of properties, getting to warmer climates. So it's almost like we see a listing and activity pick up as we get to the end of October, right before the end of December. And that's just something to be mindful of. So if I'm looking at this of trying to think, okay, let's say maybe I have a property to sell, or even if I don't have a property to sell and I'm just planning for a move right now or trying to get in somewhere next year, I would seriously think about that August to October timeframe and see what's out there. Let's just take more of a serious look. Let's get our pre-approval done, or if we're paying with cash, now you're in the ultimate position, because there's two things that are going to happen. One is we're going to get to the relocation market of Q4 and things are going to pick up a little bit. Then we're going to start getting into the unknown of the future. Do interest rates come down? Does the market economically just shift completely? Does everything that we're experiencing now with tariff uncertainty get completely played out? Because as that stuff starts happening, we could actually start seeing the dynamic shift back to the sellers and really give them the traction that they had before. 2025 is a very unique time where the prices are still elevated because sellers are living in the past. Buyers are trying to be conservative because they're living in the present. And we really don't know what's going to happen, especially as things are still kind of playing out with the Federal Reserve, the higher mortgage rates, and so much economic world uncertainty. So to me, this is really an opportunity where you could get a deal and know that long term, if this is a place that you're going to stay in at least a few years, it could be a great entry point for a buying opportunity. If interest rates go down, look at refinancing. I would encourage working with lenders that offer a free refinance in the first 12 or 24 months as an added incentive to just kind of hedge against that going down, and know that you may be able to secure a property right now at a better price in a better location, better updates than you would have a few months ago for more money. If you have any questions about timing or anything like that, feel free to reach out. Please like and subscribe to the video if you found this content valuable. And I'll put a link down below to our buyer and relocation guides as well to hopefully assist you with the transition. Thanks so much. See you all in the next one.